What's going on, guys? Lewis here with Precision Camera in Austin, Texas, and today we're going to be testing out 3 Sigma portrait lenses, and we brought back Alyssa. You might recognize her from one of our other videos. Let's go test these guys out and see how they do. So let's start off talking about what all 3 of these lenses have in common. For starters, they're all big. If you're looking for a portrait lens out of Sigma, they're all gonna be big, and if you're a wedding shooter, start lifting some weights because they're pretty bulky. Other than that, they have the same autofocus system across the board, so you're gonna get the same autofocus performance, whether you're shooting it on Canon, Nikon, anything on the L mount or on a Sony. The aperture blades, they all have 9, so you're gonna get similar autofocus shape. Obviously, it's gonna be different across the board, especially between like the 85 and the 135. The compression's gonna be a little different, but the general shape and quality of that bokeh should be relatively similar. As far as price goes, they're really not that different. They range in $200 increments. So the 85 is gonna be $1,200, the 105 is $1,600, and the 135 is $1,400. That is at the time of filming this, so if you're watching this in the future, prices might change a little bit, but they aren't drastically different. It's not like either one of these is double the price of another. As far as the weather resistance is concerned, they should be pretty similar across the board. Make sure to bring a rain cover to protect it, of course, but one isn't gonna be ready for the jungle while another one isn't. They're all about the same across the board. So now let's start talking about a little bit of the differences. Like I mentioned earlier, they're all pretty big, but the 85 and the 135 come in at about 2.5 pounds, and the 105 comes in at about 3.5 pounds. I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but if you're lugging them around all day, it can weigh on you a little bit, no pun intended. As for the glass elements that's in each one of those, that does change as well. You're gonna get 14 elements in 12 groups on the 85, you're gonna get 17 elements in 12 groups on the 105, and you're gonna get 13 elements in 10 groups on the 135. The filter thread is also a very interesting thing to talk about. You're gonna get a pretty usable 86 and 82 millimeter thread on the 135 and the 85, but you're gonna get a massive 105 millimeter filter thread on the 105, which, I mean, look at that front element, it's huge, and the lens cap is basically a Frisbee. That and the minimum focusing distance does change across the board. They're very similar between the 85 and the 135. The 85 has a minimum focusing distance of 2.8 feet, roughly. The 135 has a minimum focusing distance of 2.9 feet, but with the 105, you're gonna need a minimum focusing distance of 3.3 feet, so you are gonna have to take a little bit of a step back, especially if you do product shots or detail shots with the 105. As far as the maximum aperture, they all go to f/16, but they'll open up a little bit differently. The 135 is gonna go to 1.8, the 105 will go down to 1.4, and the 85 will also do 1.4. Throughout this test and us shooting around, we're gonna try and shoot them all wide open as best as we can, just because that's honestly how most of us are gonna shoot it. If you're gonna get a 1.4 lens, you wanna be able to shoot it at 1.4. And if you're gonna be using these for portraits, you gotta remember that they are long lenses, and you do get a very shallow depth of field, especially with some of these at 1.4. So if you're shooting close-ups, make sure you really lock into that eye, because you can miss it, and you will be able to notice that. So some final thoughts. As far as sharpness is concerned, they're all tech sharp across the board. If you can spot a difference, you let me know, but at the end of the day, it's tough for us to notice a difference, much less your client. So just be confident that it's sharp all the way across. Out of focus areas, they all do really well. Obviously, the 105 and the 135 have a little bit more of a compression because of the longer length, but the 85 has a really great spot too, and the out of focus areas look great. The 135 does have a little bit more cat eye, but again, those are you're splitting hairs. Form factor, the 105 is heavier and it is a little bulkier, so it might fit a little bit differently in your backpack or camera bag. So keep that in mind. The 85 and the 135 are a little bit more slim. They fit a little bit easier, but it's all personal preference. As far as which one is right for who, the minimum focusing distance on the 105 does come into effect, so you are gonna have to be a little bit further back. So if you're shooting detail shots or product shots, and you're in a confined space, like at a wedding, you might wanna go with an 85. But the 135 is really great if you have the ability to really step back and get that space between you and the subject. The results are really, really great, but if you want to have good communication between your subject and need to get a little bit closer, the 105 or the 85 is great for that as well. So it really is up to what you shoot. So subscribe to the channel, Follow us on our social media platforms, and I'll see you guys on the next one.